This side-split bungalow was built in the 1950s and it was in desperate need of an update. Now, since the budget was tight, we decided to renovate instead of building new. Let me show you what I did. To make this transformation work, I had to make some drastic changes. I took the roof off of the entire house, and I took the upper section, I pushed it out over top of the garage and even forward to the street. Now, the result was a facade that's absolutely beautiful and a ton of space inside to work with. To make things work on the inside, I had to completely rework the layout. Initially, the kitchen, the dining room, and the living room were all in this tiny little space. Because I was stuccoing the exterior of the house, that gave me the opportunity to resize and relocate the windows to where I needed them to be. The family room space now seats a lot of people. In front of this couch is a beautiful fireplace wall. It's a focal point. It draws your eye up to this high cathedral ceiling. We've got storage on either side, a little bit of open display, some hidden display for a TV, and other clutter. The style in here is a wonderful mix of mid-century modern, some vintage elements, and actually some new modern elements as well. It's a beautiful balance. Lighting is such an important element in any space. I love doing lighting design. Now, this is an open concept space, and we had to have general lighting. That comes from the pot lights above. But then we've got some interest in other areas to identify each space. The dining room has a fixture of its own, the living room another, the front foyer another. Now, all these fixtures are very different in their own right, but they're all the same flavor and they work nicely together. You'll notice the staircase here. It's an important element as well. Often people don't think about the fact that you can easily move it. I moved this staircase about 10 feet into this space. Now, it doesn't intrude too much because the risers are open and even the railings are very lightweight metal. You can see right through them. But what it did offer me is the opportunity to create this magnificent kitchen space down here. When it came to designing this kitchen on the lower level, I had to break all the rules that I normally would abide by. When you walk in from the garage door into the mudroom, it's actually an open concept mudroom. You've got the laundry machines right there, you've got the powder room, but it's all open to the rest of the kitchen and it draws you into this magnificent space. That openness is critical. It carries a lot of the overflow from the kitchen. When this kitchen is at capacity, you can use that space as a serving space, food preparation, storage, whatever you need. The quartz countertop wraps around the corner, draws you in to the focal point, which is the range. Beyond that, we've got a sink area and a fridge. But I decided to connect that fridge to the cabinetry on the right side with floating shelves across the window. Now we've got a massive island in the middle here, offers a little bit of seating on the back, but a lot of food preparation and serving area. It rounds this kitchen off nicely, and one of my favorite features behind me, when you walk in the front door, you walk right into the heart of this house. Though the layout is somewhat provocative, it works so well for this family of four. They love living and entertaining here, and I'm absolutely thrilled with the results.
The artist known as Ranson. You updated the entire facade of that house.
Whole thing.
It
was a tight, you know, do we tear it down, do we rebuild it? But
okay, and we're going to talk about that in the next segment, but how old is that house?
I'd say mid-50s or early 50s or somewhere around there, yeah.
And so when you looked at that, they had great, as they say, great bones. It looked like it's...
Great bones, very strict budget, not a penny over this.
Right, okay.
So it kind of, you know, we had to do what we had to do, but it turned out really, really well.
Do we have a picture of the facade again? Because I'd like to take a look at it if we can do that. Look at that. That is...
Yeah, so it didn't look like that before.
No, but you can kind of tell where it might have been when you said 50s, maybe early 60s, what those houses look like, and they're like, but low ceilings too.
Low ceilings, not very appealing on the outside. Yeah. Everything's worn out because it's all woodwork on the outside and everything. So we'll probably go to that picture in a minute, and I wanted you to look at a few things. The paneling over top of the garage, the columns, and that architectural detail. We'll refer back to that.
Let's do that. Okay, so let's talk about the first thing. There's a lot of samples.
So a lot of materials, yeah.
Yeah, the first thing is stucco.
Well, before we get to stucco, I want to talk about what people traditionally use, which is wood.
Okay.
And wood wears, so, you know, people use pine on the outside usually, but it absorbs moisture, it expands and contracts.
Yes.
It's really hard on the paint, so then you have to repaint it every couple of years. It's just a lot of nuisance, a lot of maintenance. So then, you know, there's composite materials like this, where it's a composite product, it's more of a plastic PVC type of thing, but it expands and contracts too, but the joints tend to show up after time. But it's still very good. Once you paint it, a lot less maintenance, and you can profile it with a router and make it really interesting.
So the length of time for it to stay intact is
it
what?
Still will, well, this will last a long, long, long time, but again, some of the drawbacks is if you have joints, the joints start to show up because the product moves with the heat. So as the sun hits it, it expands a little bit. When we look at that house, and they can bring that up when we talk about stucco, I use stucco on a lot of parts of this house. So when you look at the facade of this house, all the paneling over the garage, the columns, that architectural detail on top is all stucco, and the bottom of the columns are natural stone. So you go, wow, that's stucco. Well, stucco can be done so that it looks like trim work, like woodwork, because stucco comes in a lot of textures. Stucco initially, what it is a styrofoam base with a cement coating on top, and then they put the stucco finish on top. The finish on top can be textured, it can be smooth, so you can have all these types of textures. So you can have different types of textures, or you can have it really smooth. When it's really smooth, now you can create those panels, you can create columns out of stucco, and it's very durable. And you'll never have to repaint it again, you just wash it down, it stays clean, and it always looks pristine. The joints don't crack or anything. If it's done properly.
If it's done
just like everything else, right? It's got to be done properly.
I remember, though, for years, Ramson, they wanted to, like a lot of homeowners wanted to get rid of stucco.
Well, because stucco back then for this environment was being done improperly, and there was a lot of problems with it. The
like
cracks
cracking,
were showing up, yes. So now when it's done properly and there's a nice moisture barrier behind and drainage system behind it, it lasts well. And then there's all kinds of profiled moldings that you can buy to detail those columns and the tops and create crown moldings and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Looks like wood from this, you know, from the street.
Sure, it does, yeah. So you can create all these beautiful details, right, out of stucco.
Yeah.
So that's a great solution. Now, those columns had natural stone underneath. Natural stone is about 4 inches deep, and it has to be stacked on top. It has a lot of weight, so you need a foundation underneath. So it has to be part of the foundation, and it sits on that concrete, and it lines up on top. Well, we don't always have that option. In that house, I did. But if you don't have that option, the other way is to mount it onto the house.
Can I see the picture of the house again?
So when you look at this house, the bottom half of the stucco, there's a little bit of ledge of stone, and then the columns are stone.
Very British Columbia of you to do that.
Is it? I don't know what that means, but I'll take it.
No, but that's what they do. Shout out to our friends in BC. A lot of them have stone on the bottom.
Yep.
And then the wood, or is it really wood? And even in Calgary, too, in Alberta, I've noticed that, too.
Yeah.
And I love that look. It's so beautiful.
And so the looks are blending, you know.
Yes, I know, I love it.
There. I just don't like to overdo anything, so it's just very subtle. There's little hits of it. It's not overdone. When you look at it, it's comfortable to look at. If you want stone and you don't have that foundation, you can still do it, because something like this, for instance, fusion stone, mounts. It mounts on a ledger board underneath. So this is a little trim piece that mounts on, screws onto the wall, and then the stone stacks on top. And then every few courses, there's little clips. And these clips just retain it onto the wall, and you work your way up, and there's a little cap, and you can put the cap on. So you can have the look of stone, right?
Can you use that when you have exposed cement on the side of your house, too? Can you put that on there if you want to?
You can. You don't want to put this where it's submersed in the ground.
Right.
You can start at a certain point up. And then another way is to actually glue a thinner product onto a substrate, whether you have this cement base that you start with stucco, and sometimes we do that. We'll do the base for stucco, but we won't stucco all of it. We'll stick bricks and then stucco the rest. So once you have that foundation, you can do a brick veneer like this. It's only about 1 centimeter thick.
Nobody will know.
Nobody will know, because once it's on there and the joints are all pointed and cement is put in, it will look like a reclaimed brick.
Yeah?
Yeah, beautifully. And you can do this inside the house as well, right? So you can put it on drywall. Here's another look. So you can have that vintage reclaimed look. This is a true vintage brick, so you can really start to make a beautiful facade on the outside of the house.
I love what they do now, yeah.
So I love these brick veneers.
Oh, yeah.
Now, another product you can use is siding. There's different kinds of siding you can use. So you can use something like this. This is called longboard. It's an aluminum product. So when you look at this, this is aluminum. You can see it's metal, right? And, but it looks like wood. Once it's together, you get the look of this tongue and groove, and it looks fantastic. So, one, it looks amazing. Two, it's meticulous because of the details of the material. So it's aluminum, it's extruded. You're not talking wood where you get chunks out of it and things like that. And its longevity is phenomenal because what's going to happen to it? Nothing. And so we use it on the facade of the house. We use it on the soffits underneath the overhang. You can create a contemporary look, a traditional look. You can mix it with some other materials. It's a wonderful, wonderful product.
It is.
Yeah. So Longboard is a great product.
All these products that were introduced to us, I don't know how many years ago, and they're better and better.
Better and better.
Really?
So if you go to the Marilyn Dennis website, there's links to the website. Go on there. She's a nice lady, you know? Ask me what people ask me. Is she really that nice in person?
What do you say?
I say yes and more.
Is there anything else before we go?
Yeah, quickly.
30 seconds.
More economical
this is
version.
When I don't become nice.
I know, but you're taking up 15 of it. Okay, more economic version is vinyl. Vinyl siding is very economic, but if you don't have the budget, you have no choice, but it still gives you a nice maintenance-free exterior. But when it comes to wood, they have pre-treated products that are done in the factory.
But this is on the outside of the house.
Outside of the house, so siding. Now you can have like the look of shingles, you can have the look of lap siding. This is Mabex siding. It's because it's manufactured in a facility, the longevity is phenomenal. So it's got great warranty.
You'll never have to paint again.
Yes.
And Ramson?
Yes.
Will you come back next segment to talk about budgets and all that stuff that's not pretty?
I will, because the host is pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah.